you never seen a more curious bunch of dang people than landmen working on a stealth job. They would try to trick everybody involved. You're chuckling at your landmen and landowners trying to figure out who it is and speculating who it is.
You don't even tell your family where you're at. You're just here and you need to stay here and work. But the keys really were having that abstract plan and finding a out of the way place. It was highly successful in a time that people weren't looking in that direction. So it was easy to stay stealth.
Welcome to the Land Department Podcast. The state of land and energy as we see it.
Gang, it's been a while. Ooh. I can't tell if that's a filter or a real thing.
We're talking incognito. We're talking incognito, baby.
Wow, stealth.
Stealthy. Who's that? I don't know who that is. I wonder what they're doing something, but I don't know who this is. Who could it be? I had options for my incognito attire, but as you know, I chose the one with hair. You know,
man, how do we get one of those, Brent?
It's limited edition. I'll sell this one on eBay after the podcast.
It's like Trump's new shoes. You just got to sign them.
Oh man,
that's right.
Telling you.
Oh, Lord,
I love
I'll save these for the next cocktail hour.
I wish I would have known about this. I would have got Grant's costume and his big hat or in his hair.
Yeah.
What was Grant's? He's had some ridiculous posts.
Oh man,
lately.
You should have seen some of the ones we had to censor and he couldn't post.
He has learned that he has to run them by us.
Okay.
Yeah.
He runs these by you guys?
Now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So these are the approved ones.
Well,
Wow.
Steve approves them, so you know.
There was a really good one about Iran claiming Antarctica, but we had to cut that one out.
We did cut that one out.
You had the one about Willie Nelson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Oh god.
anyways,
So,
let's get into our topic. We're talking about stealth leasing projects. What makes a really good stealth leasing project?
well, first off, it's got to be stealth, which is a positive. That's the first measure of success. Yeah, I mean, you don't see them as much as we used to, right? You know, in our early careers with the shale leasing and stuff that was going on, but they still happen. A lot of the outreach, a lot of the fringy stuff that you see when things pop up in new states, you know, you want to go in stealth. When we say stealth, it just means we're working on behalf of a client, an E&P, and they don't want the world to know that it's them. So you do that for a number of different reasons. We'll touch on that, you know, throughout the podcast, but I don't know, we thought it'd be fun to just kind of reminisce on some of the older, more prominent stealth leasing jobs that personally we've been involved with over the years, and give some tips, some techniques, some things you need to consider, you know, some successes, some little tricks and stuff that you can do to make these projects a success. And ultimately you're just buying time, right? You know, you want to be able to get your position, or at least the majority of your position locked in before, you know, you announce to the world and that whatever company you're working for is there. So, yeah, just thought it'd be a fun topic to talk about and kind of reminisce on the old days and hopefully give some good information for folks.
Do we want to mention why this came up? Budagate? We want to get in there?
Oh, let's try Budagate. Man, I went down a wormhole with a gentleman about Budagate last week. I mean, I'm still processing everything.
Is that a different podcast, or we're covering it today?
That's a whole nother. We're gonna need to block off some internet time for that one.
Well,
It's,
for those of you curious,
yeah,
check
so
out Budagate.
yeah, the takeaway with Budagate is you know, I didn't think anybody listened to our podcast, but randomly a gentleman, a landman here in Houston, came up to me at the luncheon, the HAPO luncheon. He was like, "Hey man, like the podcast, y'all need to do something on Budagate." And I was like, "What's Budagate?" And so I went down a wormhole researching it. And the long and short is supposedly there's this massive Saudi Arabia oil reserve and LNG reserve north of Houston and like Washington County, Lee County, and everything, Madison County, Grimes, that EOG Resources has discovered. And they were in there very active. I mean, everybody around here knows how active they were in that area, pre-COVID. But since then, the amount of infrastructure that's being built into that area is like nothing that has been ever been seen. They're laying 48-inch pipe all over the place, that kind of stuff. And the concept is that there's this huge discovery, and EOG's tied in with the Department of Defense, and they're building out this infrastructure, and it's going to be the next biggest thing, and we're all going to be rich, baby. But EOG bought all their leases, let them all expire, move their rigs out. It's like totally reverse of anything we've ever seen from like the new Saudi Arabia. So who knows? But it got us thinking about stealthy stuff because I'd never heard of Buda Gate. And so that's how we kind of came up with this.
There we go. That's a good backstory. I listened to one podcast. I can't remember the name of it, but they were going pretty deep into it. Maybe we'll link to it in the show notes if you want to check it out.
Yeah. So Greg, is it Greg Kane?
I think Greg that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Boy, just pull his string and let him go. I mean, he's got so many facts.
Kind of like Steve. Just pull a string and let him go.
Yeah. So when Harry Carey comes out.
I resemble that comment.
I'm just
so the whole podcast of Harry Carey talking about Buda Gate.
There we go. That's the next episode for Land Department.
I'll get the glasses.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's go through one of these stealth leasing projects. Give us one.
I mean, Brandon, let's start with one of the early ones. Up in the
start with the Fayetteville. Okay, circa 2002.
Were you still driving the Danger Ranger at that time?
I was. I'm trying to think back to my 2002 ride.
It was probably
it was either a Monte Carlo Super Sport or it was like
Geo Tracker
92 Explorer.
Had that Landman money.
I was a fresh Landman though. I think I was making $100 a day and working in Arkansas. And I guess it was around October of 2002. I get a call from Haven Strike. Haven Strike goes, "Hey, don't tell anybody about this, but I need you to go to Clinton, Arkansas." I didn't even know where. I'd born and raised in Arkansas. I didn't know where Clinton was. I need you to go to Clinton, Arkansas and find rooms and board for 20 landmen. I was like, okay, sure. I get my day rate, right? He said, yeah. So,
no, you don't. No, a neighbor strike.
So I drive up there, and Clinton is a sprawling town of probably about 1,500 people. And I call Tom and I go, "Tom, there's not a bed and breakfast. There's not a hotel. There's nothing in this town." He goes, "Well, keep looking." I said, "Okay." So we keep looking, and about 15 miles away, there's this town called Fairfield Bay. And it's a retirement community that just went bankrupt. So they had all these townhouses and things that were recently opened. So I ended up getting about 10 of those. And so that was the start of that stealth leasing project. We were working for Southwestern, as everybody knows now. By January of 23, we were starting to buy leases. So our strategy there was stick 20 landmen out in the backwoods of Arkansas. We bought a title plant, an abstract company, bought their entire title plant, which really made some other companies mad when they found out about 3 or 4 years after this. And that way we had our own title plant. It's all grantor grantee in Arkansas. So we were able to staff 20 landmen under a mock name. I think we used New Century Production at the time. And frankly, just kind of the short of it is we were there for 2.5 years before anybody ever knew we were there. I think we bought like 120,000 acres before anybody knew. But the key to that was really just different name, obviously backwoods of Arkansas, north central Arkansas, not very populated. Nobody really knew what was there, what was going on. And, talking to your landmen, obviously, and being like, look, you're here, but you don't even tell your family where you're at. you're just here, and you need to stay here and work. But the keys really were having that abstract plant, and finding a out of the way place. I mean, you didn't drive to Fairfield Bay. You didn't. We didn't even hardly go to the courthouse much at that point in time. We were buying off tax rolls. We literally bought exports of all the tax rolls, loaded that in our system, did the tax rolls, bought off those. Then we'd run a little cursory check and confirm our title, pay them. So that's the short story of it. But ultimately, it was highly successful in a time that people weren't looking in that direction. So it was easy to stay stealth. And then Chesapeake came in once they found out, and we went from leasing. We started out leasing at $10 an acre for a 5+5. We went to 15, we went to 25, we went to 50. And about that time's when Chesapeake came in, and it went to 250, then it went to 660, then it went to 1,500. Then, I mean, all the way up to $5,000, $6,000 an acre.
And then you had to get 20 new landmen because the other ones had bullseyes in the back of their head.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that was a scary time. I mean, people were mad. There were a lot of people that were mad. There was also a lot of people that just said, hey, that's the deal we made. But a lot of people pissed off at the world there. And Chesapeake had an interesting strategy. They actually teamed up with a large, prominent landowner and an attorney. So all their leases were actually, whenever I say they went to 600, they actually went to 660. They'd pay. So what would happen would be they'd pay the landowner 600, then they'd pay the attorney that was working for them $30 an acre, and then they'd pay the big landowner another $30 an acre because they were out there promoting Chesapeake.
Yeah, to source the deal. So, yeah.
Yep. Genius idea from Chesapeake. I mean, they were able to, we had a huge head start at that point, but they were able to really catch up using that strategy. So, very, very, and obviously everybody else was in at that point too. I mean, we saw, I don't know, 10 companies come in once they figured out what was going on, once we drilled some wells, and all that was public information at that point.
And ultimately on a stealth job, what you're looking for is you just need to get your core position leased so you can drill your test wells.
Yeah.
Once you start drilling your test wells, the secret's out, but hopefully you've got ahead of the game, and you're ahead of the competition. So I mean, we've seen, that was one of the early ones. Obviously those were easy times to be stealth, right? There wasn't drilling info. There wasn't all this information that just jumps out there, but it's certainly gotten harder over the years, but it can still be done. We still do it. I mean, we still buy leases under Dudley Land Company. We still buy under New Century. Sometimes it's stealth, sometimes it's not. But another one is another Arkansas play that I was involved in that was sizable. Was the Brown Dents, and we all maybe remember that 2010, 2011, kind of on the back end of the 2008-9's shale boom. But, that was a 2-state project for us. It was Louisiana and Arkansas. I think before it's all said and done, we had almost 400,000 acres leased up in a stealth, nature. Nobody knew who the client was. And it worked really well. We had a title plant situation in Arkansas. We did the same thing there. Secure a local plant, which helped expedite our title research on the Arkansas side. But some of the big kind of things that make those a success is the separation of information, right? So, you set up stealth names in your systems. Your landmen don't know who your clients are. really only a couple of people in-house at the broker shop or your crew chief or whatever needs to know who the client is. And really you keep that separation. You don't email a whole lot back and forth. I mean, I've seen so many sneaky things get out by somebody forwarding an email, because they get busy and you got all kinds of back and forth. So you got to have some strategy. I think we took, and that Brown Dent's job was also for Southwestern. And so we took a lot of the lessons learned from that project and applied it to that job in Southern Arkansas and North Louisiana. And God, we went 2 or 3 years leasing on that project before, the cat got out of the bag. And by that time it was done. We had the position and didn't really experience a lot of competition in that specific area. But it's fun times. You never seen a more curious bunch of dang people than landmen working on a stealth job. I mean, they would try to trick everybody involved. The speculation is great. I mean, you can look on the forums and it's just it's fun. You're chuckling at your landmen and landowners trying to figure out who it is and speculating who it is. And
Yeah.
You're successful if you got 4 or 5 different options flying around, on the internet.
Well, I think it's always funny is whenever, now in the position we're in now, instead of being that landman out in the field, now you got people calling you going, "Hey, who is that down there in South Central Oklahoma doing all that leasing?"
Yeah.
Are y'all working on that? Or I just love, I don't know. I don't know who that is. I didn't even know what was going on.
We used to get clever with our names. We would have some name entity, but now anymore we just lease under Dudley because who knows who it could be,
Right.
And that tends to work out. But you do get those calls, people trying to catch you slipping.
Yeah. Well, and that's the deal. It's like, if you're going to do a stealth project, it's probably best to use somebody like Dudley as opposed to kind of a one-off shop that's just done your work for 20 years. You better go somewhere else if you're going to do a stealth project.
Oh, I mean, EOG was the world's worst about that. Everybody knows they use 2 brokers and they really only use 1 broker. Yeah. And, you'll see them permitting wells under, that broker's name. Like, okay.
Yeah.
They do all of their work.
Yeah.
Shocker. But, that there's some things you could do, kind of to that point, talking about, different brokers leasing under their names or stealth names that a company sets up. It was a really cool one we did out of the Rockies. It was actually a Nebraska project years ago. And we were doing the leasing, Dudley Lamb was doing the leasing for the job. But the client set up a standalone entity through a law firm in Denver. And so the law firm was the registered, party behind the entity. And so whenever you did the SEC filings or, Secretary of State filings or whatever, you would look and it would just be the law firm. And so nobody knew who it was. There's just a law firm in Denver was, associated with this entity. And that was a really good separation. You didn't have any backdooring into, oh, look, Dudley's doing this big thing or, such and such company. It was a Devon project, actually. So I took that away as something if you really want to get stealthy, which there's kind of different levels of stealthy that we see over the years. That was a good takeaway because you could take that as far as you want, and that really just kept everybody off the heel of the Devon for a good while until we got that project leased up for them.
Yeah. 3rd degree separation there.
Yeah, for sure. One that we did recently that was kind of fun, and just talking about stealth projects, again, you don't see them that often, but, in the Permian is pretty well defined, right? You got your Delaware Basin and then your Midland Basin formations, but, there's been some of the deep, the Woodford stuff, the deep Barnett stuff in the Permian that we were involved in doing some leasing for Marathon. And that was always fun. They took several assignments and we took the assignments under Dudley Land's name. That's how they got the bulk of their position. And then we were buying leases under Dudley Land for deep rights. And it was pretty interesting. I mean, we put together a really nice position with keeping our client out of their name, at least out of the press, right, on those deals and out of record title. and that worked together. That worked pretty well too. You don't see many stealthy type projects in the Permian anymore because there's just so many people involved. But that's a little trick you can do is instead of buying your leases, taking your assignment under the your company name, you can do it under a third party. And we had agreements in the on the backside that ensure that we would assign those over and all that jazz. But pretty fun, pretty successful operation there.
Have there already been any plays that you see other people doing that you like weren't involved in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you see it a little bit. Again, you don't see it as much anymore. You're seeing it up in the Rockies and some of these new plays that are popping up. There's like, I wonder who that is. You see it through East Texas some in the Haynesville, kind of when the gas prices spiked last year. We'd see a couple of stealthy, kind of fringy stuff, but you're not seeing it a whole lot. When you see a name pop up, Leasing, and you don't know who it is, like that's something to be pay attention to, because it just doesn't happen that much anymore.
And it's also hard these days. I mean, I talk about the Fayetteville Shale, like Brent brought up. You didn't have all the digital resources you have today.
Yeah.
I mean, if a stealth project pops up now, if you're good at research, and we all know one of them, Mike Stone, I'll bring him up. I mean, if you're good at research,
I was going to bring him up.
Yeah, I mean, you can find out who it is if you want to spend some time doing it. Where back early 2000s is dang near impossible. And the best stealth project is one that nobody knows you're there. And that's what's great about some of these older ones is they didn't know what to research because they didn't know anybody was there. And you don't have that anymore either. There's not, if there are, it's pretty low press anyway. So, I mean, if there's companies in areas where you don't know where they're at, it'd be surprising, if they're back in Southern Illinois, trying to drill deeper wells or something like that. I mean, nobody really cares about that at this point. So they're not looking into it. So it has to be a spot where people don't have interest in at all. You're not going to do that in the majority of the plays now.
Yeah. And I mean, online records helps a lot, right? Most of the prolific oil and gas producing states have online records coverage. So you're not marching a bunch of landmen into a courthouse. So you can be pretty stealthy there.
Mm-hmm.
But, to Brandon's point, you get in some of these random states that maybe haven't been in the limelight. They don't have that resource. So you'll have people on the ground and word will get out, at that point. I suspect with kind of some of the emerging new energies type things that are going on, we'll start to see some more of the stealthy stuff. The lithium deal is going to be interesting. All the gases, the hydrogens, the heliums, just different things that may come up in the future that there very well could be opportunities there for leasing, or where stealth leasing projects would make sense, right? A finite location where you need to get a position first before, the big dogs find out. So, it's kind of at the forefront of it's in the front of our minds. It's like, hey, this could be something that we would need to really enact and execute on again.
Yeah.
So kind of excited about that.
And we, you mentioned Mike Stone, and we talked about maybe having him on. Maybe we will, but I want to
I gotta
talk
get
about a
Mike on.
project that you guys did for him. You had told me about the other day.
The
water trucks.
In the vein of stealth, every time you're stealth, there's always somebody trying to figure out what you're doing, right? And it's just the curiosity kind of thing, right? And there's business decisions to be made, with scout work. And that's like the old school scout guys are like a dying breed. And I tell you what, it's probably the job I wish I would have had other than what I'm doing. Like I would have loved to have been a scout. Like I just feel like it's the coolest thing. You're always trying to get somebody's business, figure out what's going on. But yeah, so Mike Stone, which I am going to have Mike on, shout out to Mike. He was a scout. He's been a scout most of his career. And for those of you who don't know what a scout is, some of the newer landmen, it's before the drilling infos and all the software as a service, data management type companies, data gathering companies. you had to go out and figure this information out. You had to go sneak somebody onto a well pad to read a gauge, or you had to, in our case, when the Austin chalk in Louisiana kind of flared up, it was probably 10 years ago now. Tons of leasing going on. We were doing work for 4 or 5 companies in Louisiana leasing, and EOG was drilling some of the first wells in the chalk in southeast Louisiana. And the thing about the chalk was it produced a ton of water, ton of salt water. They did not have a lot of infrastructure to dispose of that salt water, so they were having to truck it. And the amount of water they were having to truck off site was a pretty big determining factor in like your economics of the viability of your drilling a well there. So there was a lot of talk about water and how much it was producing, but nobody really knew because there was nothing to report because it wasn't being injected yet and things like that. So Mike hired us to count saltwater trucks. So we worked out deals with landowners to negotiate access to park a truck in their barn next to down the street from the pad. And we were tucked away in the barn and we just had people counting saltwater trucks for weeks. They'd give a log every day, 42 saltwater trucks, came down the road, and Mike was just geeking out about it. And I was just loving life because we were like, sneaking around, hiding in barns, counting water trucks. It's, stuff like that. It's just kind of anytime you're being secretive, people are going to want to know what's going on. And so Scout is like, they've lurked in the edges of stealthiness for, generations of landmen.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a lost art. I really like to have Mike on sometime to just talk about those old stories and share some of that.
Yeah. Mike's one of the only people I know that are still carrying with that. Like he's always on the phone with people, always looking things up. He's one of the few that I know that still like take that scouting job seriously. And he's kind of one of those guys, he will know where everybody is and what they're doing and how good their wells are. All you got to do is talk to him about it.
Yeah. Which Mike was always really nice to us and he would like buy us dinner. So and looking back, I was like, shit, somebody wants to buy me dinner? Like, buy me dinner? Like, I don't have to buy your dinner? And come to find out, he was just milking us for information.
Yeah.
That's great.
Exactly right.
But, it's all there. But
so we talked about like degrees of separation really mattering in a stealth lease project. What are some other factors that you think about and you're considering, and not just getting separation, but how are you structuring the team? How are you keeping information organized? You mentioned not forwarding emails. What's like kind of your go-to processes?
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, you're going to limit, the knowledge of, how many people in your company know who the client is, right? So, it's essentially one billing person and maybe the project manager. That's it. And so the second thing is you want to use like platforms where all your correspondence isn't through a bunch of emails, right? It's through a project management tool. We use Basecamp. There's others out there that you can thread your conversations and it's not passed along. So you can take screenshots of whatever you're doing and pass that on to a client to get information. We've even set clients up under stealth names in Basecamp so they can see what's going on, but nobody knows who they are, right? So you want to be able to provide information to your client, but not expose them, right? So things like that, project management tools are important. So you don't have the emails going back and forth. However many degrees of separation you can create, the better, the more, the better. We use kind of one of the main things you see in a leasing project where you've got like information coming from the field to a project manager to in-house to the client and then back, or your addendums. Like your lease addendum reviews. Typically that's something that's handled in-house by a client. So that you negotiate a lease with a landowner, they get their attorney involved. The attorney sends you a 6-page addendum that goes to the client. Typically they review and strike it and redline it. And you have a lot of back and forth. What we do on our jobs is we take one of our in-house landmen contractors. So this is somebody who's, experienced in-house, works for Dudley on a contract basis now. They'll actually mark up that addendum. So they'll serve as an in-house landman. We've got several gentlemen, 20, 30-year landmen who, have spent a career doing this. they're retired now. They want to keep working. They work for Dudley Land, and they fit perfectly in those roles because they look at that addendum as an in-house landman would. And essentially they'll mark that up, send that to the client. The client doesn't have to correspond on it. They're like, yep, good. And that kind of creates that. It just prevents, a mistake. Really, nobody discloses on purpose. It's always a mistake when the word gets out to your team. Obviously setting up client, stealth names in your databases, stealth billing contacts, things like that. Anything you can do to keep your landmen from finding out is really important and easy steps you can take to create that separation.
Yeah. And to your point, just to go a little bit more in depth. So whenever you modify a Word document or build a Word document, it keeps track of who that is. Go to file, about, you can see who's marked and modified it, who created it, and all those things. So if you're really wanting to be stealth, then that needs to be altered so that your landmen aren't able to just see that, or somebody opening up that document isn't able to see that. And again, with the forwarding of emails and such, you got to be real careful. Not that we don't trust our landmen in the field, but we all know how curious they can be, and they're talking to people, and a lot of times it's a sense of pride with field landmen on who they're working for too. So it's easy for that to come up in conversation. So all those steps that are small, but you need to be aware of them so that you can keep it on the down low, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, field landmen are proud of who they work for. It's a big selling factor in negotiating a lease of any kind. Most landowners want to know who in the heck this is for, and who they're signing an agreement with. And that can be a challenge, and it takes time. Typically it's not, you just go out and go to a landowner and say, I'm Joe Blow Landman, will lease your land, that they just sign, right? It's a process. You can expect, if you're starting a leasing job, for there to be a workup. You got to build that trust, and people have to start coming around. And eventually, once the public realizes, like, hey, that they're not coming in here snatching and grabbing little stuff, they've got a big effort going. I feel like there's enough money behind it. The confidence will get there, and they'll get behind you. But it does take time. You got to kind of build up some trust and rapport with people. And it's harder for a field landman to negotiate a stealth lease. It just is. And a lot of work has to be done by a leasing agent to build that trust, and tell them all the things they want to hear. Hey, this is a reputable operator, XYZ, yada yada, and this is why we're doing it stealth, because we think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
You got to give a value proposition for sure on those types of jobs as a leasing agent. But
it's going to be interesting to see how it carries out as there's new plays in different spaces, like you mentioned, lithium, other raw materials. So be interesting to follow, see how, if there's any updates, as I think lithium is going to be a big one, just after our conversation on the podcast, the other episode, and that was fantastic. So very cool. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up this episode, we've got the Landman Olympics coming up, first annual.
Yep, first annual
Brent,
Landman Olympics.
I know you're passionate about it. I'll let you talk about the Landman Olympics, kind of your vision for it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So Dudley's always done different cookouts and things like that. It's a employee appreciation, client appreciation type thing. And here in Houston, we've done a crawfish boil for a number of years. I did it at my house for years, and we'd invite clients and their families out and employees and stuff, and we'd always have a good time with it. I've always wanted to do like this fun kind of landman games thing, and we just never did it. And finally this year I decided, you know what, we'll never do it unless we do it. So the Landman Olympics is this year, April 7th, first annual. It's going to be a charity fundraising event. We'll have teams set up, so it'll be a 4-person team. Invites will be going out here shortly. It's family friendly, so bring your family, or you can set up a team of coworkers. We'll have 4 games of random skill and maybe a certain level of embarrassment for some and less embarrassment for others. But so 4 events, be a point system. We'll take like the top 4 to 6 teams, depending on how many people we get signed up, and then we'll have a playoff. like a bracketed playoff. Those will be team events, and the winner will be crowned, and they will get some sort of belt. I think I'm going to do like a wrestling belt or an obnoxious trophy. Not quite sure, but yeah. And this year, our charity is going to be the Katy Christian Ministry across the road from our office. They do a lot of work in the community, support a lot of families and that are in need, and so we're going to raise some money for them, and it'll be a good event, and hopefully it takes off, and we can get more and more industry involvement here in Houston, and raise some money for charity every year. So we're looking forward to it. We're going to work this first year out and kind of get the kinks worked out, but I'm excited for what it could be. I think the Landman community here in Houston needs some sort of charity event. There's a lot of association events that are not involved with charities, and I think that's something special that we can do for the community. And it's a family event. It's going to be fun for people to bring their kids out, bring their wife, bring their kids, and do something as a family within our industry. So much that we do is just networking and professional networking, and the husband or the wife and the kids are at home and they know that mom and dad's out doing a networking thing. And we think there's a better way to do it, or maybe there's a different way to do it to involve the families. And so we're kind of excited about it. It's going to be fun. We'll see how it works out.
Well,
Hey,
good deal.
Brent,
We'll
are
have a
these
link.
going to be games of skill, or are these going to be Steve kind of games?
Yes.
Yes.
I might come down then.
There will
For those
be,
who don't know, Steve
Yeah, I don't know what
is,
I didn't.
Steve
well,
is remarkable at any sport that doesn't take athleticism.
Correct. Yes.
It's known around the industry that, I mean, so there may be darts. There's going to be cornhole.
Oh man.
There might be some beer pong involved.
You throw bowling in there and I'm down there.
Yeah. It's going down, Steve. May or may not be tug of war. I wanted to do like a pub crawl, but you had to run down the No Label Brewery, chug a beer, and run back. But I got to do the math. That's like a mile, and I don't know if
No one's making that.
No.
Oh, that's good.
We scratched that one. That's for a future, where you can have some strategy to your team. But
relay.
we had a pretty fun office lunch the other day, kind of talking through all the different games we're going to do. I think we're going to have a 4-sport challenge, where you throw a football, kick a soccer ball, throw a frisbee, and like something like that. So it'll be fun.
I was picturing more of like a Survivor feel where people are voted off and there's divorces happening, children are losing their parents.
Well, we're not there yet. I can't, because no broker is going to fire their client, right? So, I'm not voting my client off, but we are going to do, like, in future years, we're going to do like in-house versus, attorneys, or in-house versus these service companies or something like that. At that point, it's the gloves are off. I'm going for the throat,
That's great.
We're excited about it. So we'll be sending that invitation out to.
Yeah, you guys will get it. People that are listening will probably get an invitation if you listen to this podcast. If not, you can go in the show notes and we'll put a link for you to register as well. You make your donation directly to Katy Christian Ministries as your registration fee. So don't pay Dudley, don't send them a check or anything like that. There's a link in the show notes where you can actually donate. We accept money, but it's not a donation. So
I'll take tips, but if you want to take it to Katy Christian Ministry, you're going to have to send it to them.
If you have over 90-day aging invoices, you're more than welcome to pay those while you register.
Yes.
Exactly.
We'll see who has $200 to pay for a team, and if you owe me more than $200, we've got a problem. Okay.
Oh man, good stuff.
We're excited about it. It's fun.
Yeah, thanks for chatting, guys. Cool to learn more about the South Lease projects, but also talk about Landman Olympics. We'll see you guys around the next one.
Thanks, Khalil.
Later.
All right, see you guys.
Thanks for listening to The Land Department. Check out our website in the show notes or visit dudley-land.com to learn more about us.